Over the past few years, the poverty and hunger level in Nigeria has soared due to the hardships citizens are currently experiencing. In June 2024, a UNICEF report revealed that around 11 million children, or 1 in every 3 children under 5 years of age in Nigeria, are experiencing severe food poverty, making them up to 50% more likely to experience wasting, a life-threatening form of malnutrition. The federal government of Nigeria established the National Social Investment Program, NSIP, in 2016 to tackle poverty and hunger across the country. The suite of programs under the NSIP focuses on ensuring a more equitable distribution of resources to vulnerable populations, including children, youth, and women. Since 2016, these programs combined have supported more than 4 million beneficiaries countrywide through a fair and transparent process supported by the Ministry of Budget and National Planning and other notable MDAs with aligned goals. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss the management, challenges and pathways for improvement of the National Social Investment Program, NSIP, is Professor Nentawe Yilwatda, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. He is a renowned professor of electronics and computer engineering. He was designated a slow learner in primary and secondary schools, but became best student at the university. He would also discuss improving data-driven approaches to accurately identifying the most vulnerable and how the ministry is adapting to evolving vulnerabilities such as conflict, displacement, and climate change impacts. Good morning, Professor, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning.
All right, thank you so much. The statistics are staggering, alarming, disappointing. The poverty levels in Nigeria have, over the years, increased every year. World Bank releases statistics that do not look very pleasant. In fact, according to recent figures, the number of poor Nigerians increased by 24 million between 2018 and 2023. This is by World Bank statistics. Now, under this administration, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has reiterated a number of times his commitment to poverty reduction and poverty alleviation. This is the responsibility of your ministry. What are some of your key plans to advance the mission of the president to reduce the number of people who are poor, multidimensionally poor in Nigeria?
Thank you so much, Okwe. I think, let me just thank you for this opportunity of bringing me to Arise. And this morning, one of you was saying that you are arising, and I'm sure today we are celebrating the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and let me use the opportunity to also celebrate the Armed Forces for the services they've provided for Nigeria and protecting all of us and giving us even the opportunity to be here today. Even not because of them, I'm sure that this program may not even hold because of insecurity. So, but let me just start this way, that the figures are actually staggering. And these are the reasons why we're having, especially the malnutrition you raised the issue about. First is the issue of climate change. This year we had a lot of communities that were destroyed by flooding, from Borno to Bauchi to Adamawa, to the northwest, from Kano into Zamfara, and so many states, including Jigawa, that were affected by flooding. And the same way from the river basin of the River Niger and River Benue, and the flooding along those banks right down into Bayelsa State. So a lot of farmlands were destroyed by flooding. So it's estimated that a lot of people that were affected by this flooding and climate change don't have their farms insured. And because they don't have insurance scheme, they are going to be deeply affected by poverty and malnutrition. We also have those communities that, because of poor rainfall, especially in the far north, the effect of desertification is affecting them. So the crops may not do well because of the issue of climate change. And the government has seen that as a primary issue that we need to address. And then we have those people that have been affected by insurgency in some communities. And we're improving in terms of more communities being recovered and more spaces that some years ago we cannot farm in them. Last year we did the geo-mapping and the spatial distribution of farming communities. In the north especially, we've improved in terms of the number of communities that have been recovered and number of farmlands that people can penetrate and they can farm now. But Professor, we have also the communities that are still affected, and then we have the issue of these two that we need to take care of.
Professor,
but these are the problems.
Professor, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. What I would really like to hear this morning are numbers. So the number of people who have been, because if you mention all these things, but it doesn't trickle down to people feeling the impact of these interventions, then there will just be reports. There will be reports that we can't do anything with. How many lives have been impacted? How many people, communities? It would be great to really whittle down to the numbers this morning.
Okay, let me come this way. First, last year between October and December, and October and November, we were able to pay 5 million people the first tranche of the conditional cash transfer across the country. And then we paid the second tranche 1.4 million and the third tranche 1.4 million households. Now, the reason why the number of people the household reduced is because the president has directed, based on CBN new regulation, that before any payment is made to an individual or a household, they must have at least a digital identity so that we can trace them. And that is the NIN number. And so we are doing the data capture, but for now, the poorest of the poor that we have on the database, only 1.4 million of them have digital identity. That's we can trace them using NIN number. So already we're working with NIMC and we're deploying already. We're doing training. NIMC has brought in more devices for us under a program with the World Bank for us to assist us to do data capturing of people that don't have NIN numbers. And already we're training in some states like Rivers, like Kwara, like Abuja here, also in Nasarawa and some few states, even Kano. So we're deploying to those states as the first round, and by end of this January, we want to deploy across all 36 states to ensure that we start harvesting the NIN number of up to 18.1 million Nigerian households that we need to capture as fast as possible so that we can deploy, so we can make payment for them. But that's now for conditional cash transfer. And we're working, the target of the president is that we should target 15 million households. And the average household is about 4 to 5. So we're discussing here roughly in the neighborhood of about 70 million households I want to target with 75,000 naira per person this year. So if we're able to get that 50 million people that the president asked us to target, and we're paying each of them 75,000, that will help them in several ways, because we're going to give them financial literacy, and that will help them to either start small businesses or go into agriculture. Will help them to buy farm inputs and help to improve and expand their farms. It will help them to expand their businesses. It will support them in no small measure at that level so that we can see improvement in production in the country across the poorest of the poor households. So that's one step that we're taking. The second step we're taking is working with the IDPs also, the people that are displaced.
Okay. As you're reeling out your plans, I'd just like to step in to add another dimension to this. I was just going through your ministry's budget proposal for 2025, and I was a little bit surprised because it seems of all the line items, there's only one line item that is registered as an ongoing project, meaning a continuation from the last budget, and that line item is the purchase of office furniture and fittings to the tune of 160 million naira. However, every other line item depicts that there are new initiatives, new projects, new things that you're starting. So I'm curious, what is the state of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction? What did you meet there? Because I know you're probably still settling in and getting things going. We know the ministry was running on autopilot for almost a year. Tell us the state of affairs that you met in the ministry. For now, what we made was that there was a suspension of all the programs pending the arrival of a minister.
mark you, the PAMSEC can only approve maximum of 30 million naira on a project. So most of the projects were suspended until my arrival. Some of them, they've done the ministerial tender, tender board meetings, and they were waiting for my concurrence. And I've given concurrence for those projects to take off. And for now, we're actually executing most of them, and implementing most of them. And that's why I was telling people that one of the programs we're running is, number one, we're going to run some programs that has to do with youth development. And for the youth development program, we had the intervention that was given to us by the, in the budget for last year. And it is that intervention we're implementing the empowerment of the youths in automobile, in renewable energy, and also in agriculture. And we're doing that across all the 36 states. And so this program will run this year. And we felt that since we're running them this year, because we couldn't implement them last year, and we're allowed to implement till June, so most of the projects, since we couldn't implement them last year, and we're moving them this year, then there may be continuity for the next budget line, not this budget for this year. That's the reason why I discovered that there was no continuity in most of the projects that we were running, because we're still implementing
Professor,
them.
if so many things were not done and so many things were hanging, should we really be spending as much as 160 million on furniture? There's two line items for furniture, 160 million. The other one is... it's 2 by 160 million. So that's, how much is that? That's 300 and something million on furniture. Given the state of the nation, should we really be proposing to spend 300 million on furniture for the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs?
Now, we have new agencies that are coming up that they have no accommodation before. Under NIN, in INSIPA, and some of the agencies that we have, they don't have offices before. So we're moving them to new location that we're asking for a new office to be given to them. Even my ministry have been moved from where it is now. It has been allocated to Ministry of Communication. So we're moving to another floor, different from the one that has been allocated to us. So they allocated a new set of offices to the ministry. So we're refurnishing those new offices, completely new, and then INSIPA also, which is a new agency under us, we're going to also furnish those places. That's the reason why you see we have some level of we have to bring some figures for furnitures in terms of the ministry. But mark you, this just can you put that across with we have over 500 billion naira that was allocated, and over 550 billion naira is going straight into the people in terms of intervention in different forms, home groups, school feeding program, and also the major programs that has to do with conditional cash transfer, GVG, grant for vulnerable people. So I think that's the focus of the ministry. If you look at distribution of funding, you discover that over 99% of the fund is actually going direct to the people.
All right. Okay, so I hear you, but one of the things, the challenges that Nigerians have, and I'm sure you'd appreciate that, is a trust deficit with your ministry. In fact, at some point, people had said that they should scrap the ministry because it's been plagued with controversies around corruption, diversion of funds, citing the examples of the 2 ministers who were in office before you. Some of them, their cases are still being investigated. What are some of the measures you would put in place to ensure that you're able to avoid these same pitfalls? I say this because a lot of money is allocated to your ministry. It is a priority area of the president. However, a number of people have said, and do confirm, yes, that they do not feel the impact of the ministry. For instance, the conditional cash transfer, the talk about the social register, national social register. What is the status of those things? Because when you talk about cash transfer, it's an easy way for money to go missing. And so I know that you would want to avoid such from happening under your tenure. What are some of the measures that you put in place? Then beyond cash transfer, you yourself said during an interview that you cannot solve humanitarian problems with humanitarian solutions. What are some of the wider interventions you would do for sustainability to ensure that Nigerians are not just lifted out of poverty, but are able to stand on their 2 feet rather than waiting for handouts and cash transfers that doesn't seem to provide a sustainable solution to poverty in Nigeria?
First step we've taken is, number one, there's no fiscal distribution of cash to anybody again. So you will never see anybody in the ministry distributing cash to anybody in the markets, in the market spaces, in stadium, or group people distributing cash for them. That has stopped. So what we're doing now is that for any money to be given to anybody, we're going to, number one, make transfer to each of the accounts that has been captured. That's number one. Number two is digitizing the processes. And that's what we've done now. That's what we're saying, we're capturing all the digital identity of the people that are on the social register. We're also geotagging every homes so that from the social register, you can just, you can get the location of the homes, you can get who is there, you can have, a view of the kind of homes they live in. If I now get an identity of the person and I get the geolocation of the home, and I discover that the house is a 5-story building with people living with, I see cars around the houses, I know that home is not for a poor person. So with that, we can actually have an overview of the people from our dashboard. We can have an overview of homes, the kind of people that we're having in the community, the kind of vehicles they have, the kind of social services they have in the community. You will know whether they're among the poor, the poorest of the poor. That's one form of ensuring that you have some level of sincerity, and also you punch all the lists that are not meant to be on the social register. And that's what we've done, and that's number one. Number two, what we're doing also is to ensure that we design programs that can exit these people from just being given handout. And that's why we're doing what we call also financial literacy training for all the beneficiaries. So every beneficiary is being trained financially so that he knows what to do with the money and how he can exit himself out of this program. So if you're given 75,000 naira as a rural farmer, you can buy fertilizer, you can buy farm inputs, you can expand your farm. You can also start small-scale businesses. There are businesses in the villages that can go for 30,000, 40,000 naira, 50,000. You can start small businesses, selling vegetables, and just even doing nano and micro businesses in the villages. These are things we are doing to ensure that we improve the lifestyle of the people in the rural communities. That's number two. Number three, we're working with the IDPs, who are some of the people affected by this crisis we're having. And we're farming, we signed an MOU with NALDA. We're creating them into cooperative, small cooperative, and they will now farm in cooperative. We're cultivating 10,000 hectares of land across different states that are affected by this insurgency, and also flooding and the rest across the country. We want to ensure that these 10,000 hectares will support roughly about 20,000 households. And we're providing them with fertilizer, we're providing them farm inputs, and at the end of the harvest, we'll offtake 70% of what they will harvest and give them the cash component, and 30% can be the food component. So they will have both cash and food component, while we offtake that 70% and support other IDPs and other communities. Simply put across, we're using IDP support IDPs. That's the second program we're doing to support the vulnerables. The third program we're doing to support the vulnerable is the young people. The government have purchased over 100,000 items in different sectors, from auto mechanics to tractors to vulcanizing to beauty to cooking to bakery, to different sectors of the economy. And that is to target nano, micro, and small-scale industries that can support young people. And all these items, if we put across, we target to support nothing less than 500,000 households with that kind of, project, in terms of creating small-scale industries, creating also cooperatives of people that will exit them into this. So we're working with other international donor partners to ensure that we implement all these programs together. Then we're also working from our budget that we have this time around. We're doing pilot scheme program of targeting, making the young people that are unemployed, connecting them to the private sector and the market at the same time. And I gave an example in my last discussion that we are talking with, for example, in the automobile industry, we are talking with GAG Motors and other local car assembly plants in Nigeria. We want to ensure that the youths who are unemployed are connected directly to the market space and the private sector. And we're doing that in several sectors of the economy. We believe that if we implement most of these programs this year, as the president and directors to do, we're going to reduce to an extent, massively, the number of people who are affected by this poverty.
All right.
All right. Okay, now, of course, there's a broader conversation around poverty reduction because we know the inflationary environment currently that exists in the country, although there are efforts to reduce it and to counter it. But let's have a listen to what the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria had to say with regards to fighting poverty and using inflation without battling low inflation. Let's take a look at this.
Let me conclude by saying that as far as I know, there is no economic model that portends to take people out of poverty when inflation is accelerating at the levels that we've seen it at. There's none. And for that reason, we do not intend to relent on ensuring that we bring it under control.
So in essence, the conversation is all you're doing, the 75,000, for example, when minimum wage was increased to 70,000, initially it seemed like a victory, but some people are saying it has been eaten away. It can't do much anymore. So these cash interventions, will they not be cancelled out by inflation? Or have they not already been cancelled out by inflation?
You know, that was not the figure before. We improved the figure. It was 60,000 before. We increased it to 75,000 naira, added 15,000 to the figure. And, you know, sometimes when we talk at the comfort of our table, we feel that this money is too small for the people in the rural community. Most of the nano businesses that people run at the lower level, they take, some even go as far as low as taking loans, because we did a survey. These figures they come up from a survey that was conducted not just by we alone, but the donor partners, the World Bank and the rest. We sat down and all the World Bank and the ministry sat together and a survey was conducted. So these figures these figures are arrived at by a scientific methodology method of assessing the level of poverty, assessing what people can do with 75,000 at the lower ebb, like people in agriculture, people in nano businesses, people in small businesses. What can they do with 75,000 naira? And that's what we work on to arrive at these figures that can support homes in the rural communities.
I don't think you've quite answered that question yet. So what we're saying is that in order to defeat poverty in Nigeria, there ought to be a concerted effort. So you can work as the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, but as long as we have an economic challenge on our hands with the rate of inflation, it will just make the work you're doing redundant. It would not have the desired effect on the people. And maybe perhaps that's why you're doing all these interventions, spending so much money, and we cannot see the real impact on people. Rather, what we see is more people moving into poverty. And so collaboration, what are efforts being made? Is this a waste of time if we do not deal with inflation numbers in Nigeria?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of collaboration between us and several sectors of this, several ministries. Like we're working, even the CBN, the Minister of Budget and Planning, you know, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Finance, they're all part of the poverty reduction team under my ministry. So they have representatives from all these sectors that work together with them. So they support the program and work together with them to implement most of the programs. So most programs are the issue of poverty is multi-sectoral approach that you need to actually work on it to implement and ensure that you get a buy-in all the sectors before you implement it. And like I keep on saying, that my ministry alone cannot work on poverty reduction. We're working with the Ministry of Labour and Productivity, because if you listen to the Minister of Recent, they're implementing job creation across their ministry also. If you listen to Minister of Agri also, they have to implement the dry season farming to also tackle the issue of food inflation and food challenges. Because we sat down with them in some of the meetings that we worked together with the Ministry of Agriculture, and they're working with dry season farmers and the community of dry season farmers, and we targeted also the rural people, which my ministry provided some data to them also to assist them, to support, to ensure that the vulnerable people at the lower level are also involved in this support that they're giving the people.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning. We look forward to having you again on the show.